The Devil's Road Trip by Emma Shelton. Does anyone have exciting plans this weekend? Katie asked. There were four of us sitting in the teacher's lounge during lunch. Small talk was indeed small as we scarfed down our reheated leftovers in the few sacred minutes we had. I smiled as if the question were an inside joke. I do, I replied, but I don't know what they are. Everyone at the lunch table gave me a quizzical look. It was Easter weekend, so it would be assumed we would be spending the weekend with family, at least on Sunday. However, this weekend was going to be different. It would be the first Easter Sunday that I was pretty sure I wouldn't be having dinner at my grandmother's house. But I really didn't know where I would be. My husband Doug had planned a secret getaway that I would learn the details of as they unfolded. I love surprises. When I was in 7th grade, my mom picked me up from school and said we were going shopping with my cousin and her mom. We weren't huge, frequent shoppers, so when I found out we were going to Greenville, South Carolina, I knew this would be an exciting adventure. On our drive, as we got closer, my cousin and I noticed cars that had been painted and decorated for a Hilary Duff concert. I loved Hilary Duff. How cool would it be to see her in person? I must be incredibly daft, because I still did not realize we were going to this concert until we were literally walking to the door. Talk about a pleasant surprise. More than spontaneous surprises like this concert trip, though, I like knowing there's going to be a surprise. I love the anticipation of something exciting about to happen. To my own downfall, if I know there is a secret or surprise, I always try to figure out what it's going to be. Sometimes I will solve the mystery and then be upset with myself for ruining my surprise. So when my husband told me he was taking me on a surprise trip, I did everything I could to try to figure it out. I asked questions and tried to get clues. Is it in South Carolina, where we lived at the time? No. Is it in North Carolina, where we were from? Nope. Is it near the beach or the mountains? No answer. Is anyone else we know going to be there? No answer. What do I need to pack? Something you can walk in. What's that supposed to mean? While I never figured out as many details as I wanted, he was really good at keeping his lip buttoned, I ultimately weaseled out of my husband that we were going somewhere in Virginia. The weather was going to be comfortable. I needed to pack my tennis shoes and hiking clothes. Our roommates would take care of our dog Pocket, and Doug had at least told our parents where we were going. For safety. I know this probably sounds weird and creepy. Trust me, I had no idea where we were going or what we would be doing when we got there. Presumably some hiking. That's unsettling. But the intrigue of adventure, the promise of surprise, the joys of being outside, and the trust I had in the love of my life made me super excited. We left early on a Saturday morning. By early, I mean we lived in the middle of South Carolina and had crossed the Virginia state line by noon. I was way too excited to have no idea where I was going. We stopped and ate lunch at McDonald's, and Doug checked his GPS route, which I had not been allowed to touch the whole ride. We were 1, maybe 2 hours from our destination. My legs were going to be grateful for a hike after this ride. Once back in the car, I was refueled and ready for this surprise to be revealed. My mind was racing with the possibilities. We were in the mountains of Virginia. It looked like a really small town, like so small and mountainous that school buses were parked at the drivers' houses instead of schools or bus garages. There were train tracks everywhere. This had to be a small, working town that reminded me a little of District 12 in the Hunger Games. Finally, we turned onto a gravel road heading into the woods. I could tell we were about to go up a mountain. My anticipation mounted. We're really going hiking in the woods of Virginia. As we made our way up the side of this mountain, there were numerous thoughts surging through my head. 1. Thank goodness we have a Subaru, and aren't driving my little Volkswagen Beetle or Doug's Honda Civic. 2. We're going to lose cell service. We did. Hopefully, we don't lose GPS. We didn't. I wonder where this leads. I don't see any creeks or nature signs, and this road is really winding. 4. He's taking me into the woods to murder me. Are you taking me into the middle of nowhere to murder me? Would I tell you if I were? 5. I have to pee. Really bad. I have a teacher's bladder of steel, but that Mickey D's sweet tea had worked its magic and was putting my bladder through a real test of endurance. There were obviously no restrooms. We were on a 1-lane gravel road in the middle of nowhere. Now, I'm not afraid to pee in the woods, and there weren't any other cars around us, so Doug backed the Subaru into a level area where it wouldn't roll down the mountain. He graciously kept watch while I squatted behind the car. Lo and behold, someone just had to come up the road and pass by us while I was doing my business. It's fine, I told myself, keeping my head low. We're not from around here, and no one knows us. I'll never see them again. It's going to be fine. A firm believer in leaving the wilderness wild, I made sure to leave no trace as I tidied up and jumped back in the car. Doug had been checking the GPS while I was outside. All he could see was a single curvy road leading to the flag that was presumably where we were going. We drove around more hairpin turns for what felt like ages. Just as I was getting to the pinnacle of my boredom, we entered a clearing near a pond. There was even a pickup truck parked nearby and some guys fishing. So maybe we were nearly there. Doug pulled over and went to ask the fisherman if we were near this place that was still a mystery to me. We had been driving so long that he broke the stereotype that men don't ask for directions. Turns out we were on the right mountain, but on the absolute wrong side of it. In order to get where we wanted to be, we needed to go all the way back down to the main road, around the mountain, and back up the other side. My poor husband looked so discouraged. He was also wary of the time. It was mid-afternoon by the time we got to the trailhead's tiny parking area, and while it was still crowded, this was a hike we'd never made, and we didn't know how long it would take to hike to the surprise at the end, and then to hike back out. Thankful to finally be somewhere, I was eager to get out of the car and stretch my legs. I was so ready to start hiking, to be in the woods instead of the car, and to finally see this surprise. My excitement seemed to cheer Doug up, and he was more optimistic as we embarked on our originally intended adventure. While there had been so many cars in the parking area, there weren't many people keeping pace with or passing us. There was one couple we passed who looked to be around our age and ability level. The trail itself was rigorous, uphill with 13 to 15 creek crossings. I'm not sure which crossing we were on when I slipped on a rock and landed pretty hard on my rump. I wasn't injured, but I was soaking wet and a little sore. All I could do was laugh. The day had already been an adventure. It wouldn't be complete without falling in the water at some point. As we continued on, I heard a splash. We looked back to see the couple we had just passed. The man was graciously pulling his lady out of the water, as she seemed to have fallen about where I did. They laughed it off too, and kept up their adventure. I love hiking. There is something amazing and fulfilling to me about being in nature. I especially love hiking when there's a goal to reach at the end of the hike. I like hiking to waterfalls or rock formations much more than just walking in the woods. I don't mind climbing a little while we're at it. Our trip already had beautiful scenery and water features, including swimming holes and a beautiful waterfall. But there was something better that only Doug knew was at the end of a 1.6-mile hike. If 1.6 miles seems daunting, because remember, we would have to hike that back for a total of 3.2 miles. Imagine my shock when we reached a fork in the trail that gave some insight to our adventure. If we took the path to the right, it would be a 7.2-mile loop that included whatever scenery we were making our way to. Because it was nearly 4 p.m., we chose the shorter route, obviously. As we reached our ultimate goal, I was in awe. The scene was breathtaking. We had reached what is called the Devil's Bathtub. The twisty, windy road we'd gotten lost on and the rigorous trail we'd hiked after hours of driving were absolutely worth it all. The creek cascaded down into a pool that looked just like a bathtub. The water was so clear we could see the rocks below covered in blue-green algae. Other adventurers with braver hearts than ours jumped into the pool. My earlier stumble let me know that the water was way too cold for me to go swimming just then. I was happy just to see it. The Devil's Bathtub is a feature of the Devil's Fork Loop Trail, that 7.2-mile loop mentioned earlier, in Duffield, Virginia. The hike is not for the beginning hiker or the faint of heart, but oh my goodness, the view is worth the climb. The hike back to the car was not as exciting as the anticipation of the unknown going in. However, it was starting to get late, after 6 o'clock, and I was starting to get hungry. I also knew we weren't driving back to Columbia after such a long day, so I wanted to know where we were staying. My precious husband had booked us a room in a beautiful historic inn, which means definitely haunted, in Wise, Virginia. Once we checked in, we got cleaned up and walked down the street to a cozy little pub where we had the best meal. As I glanced across our dinner table at this man who had planned this whole trip, I couldn't help but smile with gratitude and admiration. He pulled off a fantastic surprise. Our drive home was pleasant, but not as exciting as a drive to an adventure. We were so exhausted from our hike that it seemed to take forever. We did make a pit stop in Marion to say hi at Easter dinner before going home. I had quite the exciting story to tell at the lunch table Monday, too. Adventures like this one never go exactly as planned. I know Doug didn't plan to spend half our afternoon driving up and then back down a gravel mountain road and getting us lost. The unexpected pieces of such an adventure make it more interesting and memorable. This trip is one of my top favorite memories. So, if you ever have the opportunity to go on a spontaneous adventure with the person you love, do it.